the Nurses Doing GAMSAT podcast, brought to you by Thankflip GAMSAT. We're here to teach you how to smash the GAMSAT, get into medicine, and become a flippin' great doctor. Welcome to this week's episode of Nurses Doing GAMSAT. I have two people here with me who I'm really excited to kind of dive in with today. So the first one that I'll introduce is Dr. Thomas Forfer, my bestie, partner in life, partner in crime, some may say. Hey?
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me today, Marie. This is a real pleasure to be on this
Invited
podcast.
back to you.
Invited back. Yes, you brought me back.
It's in your own podcast.
Allowed me to come back. I have not messed up that badly yet. All good.
Who knows? Do I put you on probationary period is the question. And
No, you should take me off sometime, right? I think it's more take me off that thing.
And I'm excited to have our special guest here today, who is Ashleigh Beeman. Welcome aboard.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm just excited to hear about your story because we've known you for a few years now and you've got an incredible journey. So without me kind of diving into your background, how about you start by just letting us know, like, pre-GAMSAT, pre-medicine, what were you doing? What was life like? Tell us everything.
Yeah, cool. All right. Pre-medicine, pre-GAMSAT, I am an ex-military chef who then decided that I wanted to go and do nursing and just loved it. Loved nursing. Got the dream job straight off the bat, working in the children's hospital, then went off and started working rurally, worked out there, beautiful time, living it up, then realised that little piece of me that was like, oh, I want to go back to what it was I wanted to do when I was asked what I wanted to be as a kid, which was be a clown doctor.
Amazing.
And being that stubborn little child that I was, and someone told me they weren't real doctors. So I was like, well, I won't be a doctor then. If I can't be a fun, cool clown doctor, I won't be.
I don't know. It depends on who you ask. There's probably a few clown doctors out there.
I've come across a couple. But I was like full-time working out in like rural areas. I've worked in Carnarvon, in Katherine, and up in Gove in the Northern Territory.
Wow.
And
what was that like?
Oh, the most beautiful experience, and just really connected with the community and the Indigenous people, and being able to integrate like some bush medicine into the hospital and seeing a really good example of that was just great fun.
Yeah.
It's really rewarding and fulfilling.
Yeah. I think when we talk about your medical school life, I think it'd be interesting to hear how that's impacted it, because I know there's a lot of teaching on Indigenous communities and being appropriate and understanding that side of things. So it'd be interesting to hear, once we get to that bit, how that's going to play into it.
So then you're like, I can't be a clown doctor, so screw it. I'm not going to do it at all. But then something clicked at some point, yeah?
Yeah, so it was like fast forward to working full-time, well, probably more than full-time because we're short-staffed as nurses, and working with some really beautiful female doctors, male doctors as well, but some, I guess, role models and people that I looked up to now, where they were considered mature age students, did their postgraduate degree, became a doctor, but still had a family, still managed to have kids and beautiful relationship and go on and then be the breadwinner of the family and making, like, rewriting what a doctor is, I guess, in my mind, of going, oh, I actually could do that. And then in working so closely side by side as you do in the rural area, I was like, I actually can do that, because I'd often gone, oh, I can't do that, I'm too old, I already have a career, which is like my second career already, and I want to have a family and I want to be good at what I do. I don't think I'm smart enough. I don't think, if it's all too much, I'd have to go back to not earning money and all of those big things. So I kind of had just written it off, never thought I'd go back to that thought. And then I was on night shift one night with a really beautiful friend of mine who's a midwife, that then we were just toying with the idea, and I went home, sat on it, went back to the next night shift, and I went, I think we're onto something here. Like, it's really kind of unlocked something. And then a month later, we're on night shift again together because we often would get paired up. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to sit GAMS and just give it a go.
Did you find that she was kind of asking you questions and just kind of curious about you without any kind of agenda, and that kind of got you thinking about stuff in a different way?
We were kind of, I guess, a little bit, one, frustrated in the lack of doctors available to us in Carnarvon at the time.
Yeah.
And just that constant turnover of locum doctors. And we were kind of, as you do at 3 a.m. when you get a bit delirious, like, what would you be doing if you weren't doing this? And I was like, I toyed with the idea of being a doctor, and maybe I'll become a folk singer or go back to being a really like famous chef or something, all those sorts of things. And she was just really encouraging, and she was like, you would make a great doctor. And I was like, yeah, but it's a lot of like uni, and I could see myself in that role.
Yeah.
I was like, it's a lot of responsibility. Do I really want that? I want to have family. I want to have kids. That's a lot of kind of time to sacrifice in that stage. So I'm in my early 30s. So making this decision in my late 20s, I was like, there's a lot to weigh up there. No, I can't do it. I was like, I'm not smart enough to do that. I struggle with my, day-to-day things that I'm doing, feeling smart enough and worthy enough to be a nurse. And then at the time I was acting as a clinical nurse, which was a big step up for how junior I was, and kind of had that imposter syndrome and always have. And it was that support and questioning, like, why would you want to be a doctor? What would be that driving force?
Yeah, I often find that someone but she probably didn't have an agenda. She didn't want to push you one way or another. She was just curious, right?
Yeah.
Wanted to know about you.
What we did. And then, that conversation turned into what sort of toast are we going to make tonight for dinner, like breakfast. So.
Yeah, that's it. And are there any Freddo frogs left? Or something like that.
Totally random, but this is exactly what happened and why Tom proposed to me. I don't know if I've ever shared this story.
That's what I was bringing it up, because I was like, I find that it's in those. I had a similar. It was years down the line. I was an intern in the last rotation. I was on oncology, radiation oncology, and I was the intern on the ward, and I didn't have many patients at a time. But if I had maybe 4 or 5 patients, I was really busy because they were really, really sick, because they were doing outpatient treatment, and if they had to come into hospital, it was bad news. And so anyway, I'll be sitting in the tea room having my lunch, and just the nurses there in the oncology ward, they'll just be like, "Hey, how are you? What are you doing?" And just asking all these questions. And just kind of curious rather than having an agenda.
Yeah.
And I think because they've seen all this end of life kind of conversations and all this, because it is oncology, there is a lot of that stuff. So that they really knew how to ask really good questions, and I was just curious, and it got me thinking about things in a different way. And I think it was shortly after that I did propose to Marie, after many years of not.
Just like side note, he had told me he's never getting married, ever. And I was like, well, if I have to be with the man of my dreams, but we don't get married, like, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. And I kind of had that. Yeah, I wanted the big white wedding. Like, I had dreamed about it for so long. And then when Tom's like, never getting married, then I was like, do I want to And I was like, why would I give up my dream man for one day to get married? Okay. All right. Yeah. And I just accepted it. And then cute oncology team who kind of got him thinking about it.
A colleague or a friend who was just no agenda. Because in the past, people have hammered me, you need to get married, you need to do all these things, and I just resisted, But then someone just asking, curious,
gets you thinking for yourself. It's so similar, different circumstance, obviously, different life decision.
It's still a big decision.
That makes sense.
So then you're working rurally. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this. And actually, before I move on, so many of our previous guests have talked about this. I'm not smart enough, imposter syndrome. It's this theme that I'm seeing. So I'm glad that you brought it up, because anyone that's listening right now is going to be able to go, well, she had that and she could do it, so maybe I can do it too. It's okay. You can have imposter syndrome, and I feel like you're not enough, and still achieve your goals, which I absolutely love. So tell us what happened then. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this horrible exam. What happened?
I look back and I go, ISO was not in the right headspace to sit that sort of exam. But I think I booked it for 12 months down the track and started to get into some study, did it independently. I was like, I can do this, got a few resources online, had good support from the people that were around me. Like, called my best friend who was actually there at the time, and she's also a GP. And I'm like, can I borrow your 10-year-old who's really good at like science, and he's got a whiz brain. I'm like, I need to know about chemistry and physics, and I don't know any of these things. And it was very overwhelming. And that probably blocked me a lot because I didn't want to face the things that I wasn't good at. So I would focus on like section 1, which I was really good at, and not the best writer, but I was like, well, I can come up with ideas to write an essay. So those sorts of things. Did that, went and did the exam, and kind of fell flat on my face. I was like, all right, didn't pass section 3, scraped through section 1 and section 2. And I went, all right, that didn't work. I just need more time.
Yeah. I'll do it in a year. I'll give myself more time to study.
Yeah.
More time to freak out about it. I need more time to think that I can't do this.
Yeah. And I was like, it's because I'm working too much. It's because I just crammed it all at the end and didn't want to, because you get overwhelmed by it all and put off those things that you don't want to challenge yourself with. And then you go, oh, I do actually need to look at those, and the exam's in a month, and I need to try and figure that out. So sat it again, and same result. So I was like, all right, something's not working here. And that was, not passing the second time was a harder pill to swallow.
Because did you study a lot more for that one, or was it the same kind of a lead up?
I felt like I did, but I think I just focused in the wrong areas again, still kind of avoiding what was difficult. And I went in and I didn't believe that I could do it. Like, it was a real head game. I think when I came on board with you guys and did the boot camp and went, oh, this is as much a head game as it is an actual knowledge game.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely flipped a few things.
Tell us a bit more about that. Like, what do you mean? How is it a head game?
So for me, it's a self-worth and the way that I would let the overwhelming feelings of failing and the fear of failure get into my body before I'd even walk in. So in my head, I'd already kind of gone, I'm probably not going to pass this, but I'm here and I'm just going to do it, and I'm tired, and, you know, I've had to give up night shifts and sacrifice all these things in my life. Everything felt really hard. And I just don't think I didn't feel like I was worthy of being a doctor. So in reframing that, even though I know I am, and everyone around me is going, you'll be a great doctor, you've got this, you're totally worthy of doing this. I didn't realize how much that impacted my headspace going in. And then in the exam, I'd come across a question that I didn't know the answer to, and I'd get really stuck on it. And then I might move on, but it would still be ruminating in the back of my head. Then you go into section 2 and it's like, all right, time starts now. And all I could hear was everybody else's keyboard smacking away a million miles an hour. And I'm no IT guru. Like, I still was lucky enough to go through school where it wasn't a requirement to have to do everything on the computer. Could handwrite things.
You're typing with like one finger typing?
I mean, I can do 4, but it's what I'm doing. And then, like, I feel I'd recently had a diagnosis of ADHD in the last couple of years as well. So I was like, it just takes my brain a little bit to connect with my fingers. So my fingers go slower than my brain, and then my brain goes a bit in a different direction to other people. So hearing everyone else type, and I'm going, I'm still on my introduction to my first one. that then starts chewing in, and then that's coming into the way that I'm writing. Then you go out for your break and you come back for that third section, and it was like, I don't know. And then I'm getting out questions about the reproductive cycle of a fly. And I'm like, how is this relevant? Like,
yeah,
what do you mean it's not relevant?
Yeah.
Reproductive cycle. We've had the anatomy of the gills of a fish.
Yep.
The body temperature of a platypus in and out of the water.
So thinking, then realizing what it was that they're trying to assess behind all of that. It's not, do I know how a fly reproduces or the life cycle of that? It's kind of like, how am I going to face this question that's difficult and process through it and get to an answer and eliminate the most wrong answers first. And that changed the way I approached the exam. And then trying to disconnect that feeling of coming across that question and going, oh, I don't know that. I'm just going to flag it, move on. I'll find what I do know and then work back that way. So I think I probably did most of the biology based questions first because they were the closest to what was good for me in that section, and then did the physics ones because that was math based. And I was like, all right, well, I'm a little bit better at that. Chemistry was the last one, and sacrificed a few points where I needed to spend the time on the questions I could answer and be okay with that when I walked out.
Yeah. I think it kind of all brings back to that triangle that we really base everything on. So if you think about the triangle, like part of the exam is skill set. Like you've got to know your section 1, how to, analyze symbolic poetry, and you've got to know reasoning skills for section 3, and you've got to know idea generation for section 2, like skill set. But that's where everyone focuses. But if you look at the triangle, the other two sides of mindset and work ethic are just as important as the skill set. And when you realize you can have the skill set and still get things wrong because you're chewing away in your head and have got that massive doubt in yourself and almost disbelief and imposter syndrome, and you can really sabotage yourself that way. Like I feel like a lot of people do that, and just smashing away at improving the skill set doesn't necessarily help the mindset. Like actively helping the mindset helps the mindset, and actively helping your work ethic, which is not just how many hours you put in, that's what we classify as, good work ethic, but also the quality of the hours and the outcomes of the study. Not just, I studied 40 hours this week, I'm amazing. It's like, what did you do in those 40 hours? How many skills did you improve? And so when you start, and this is the culmination for you, I can see it's all like coming together in that moment there. That's what I'm hearing.
Yep, definitely.
Oh, I love it. So then so tell me about the third time. What was different? Or how many times did you sit it in total?
The 3.
Awesome. Tell me about the third time.
Third time, I was restricted in time, and I was working in Catherine at the time, not too far off, like moving up to Gove. So I had this really small window of where I could go. So actually, instead of sitting it in WA, which is where I was previously, I sat it in Darwin. And it was a smaller group, smaller room, which was really nice in comparison. And then I probably felt the same coming out, like a little bit more confident. But again, like you get thrown those big questions, you walk out and you go, oh, I don't know. And we had to, like, the facility where I was, when we came outside for lunch, there wasn't really anywhere to sit that was cool or shady, and I was feeling a little bit hot and flustered and going, well, that wasn't really my best essay, but that's all right. And normally I'm like, I'm not going to talk to anyone. But there was this one little tree that there's a few sitting under, getting a break.
And it's Darwin, so there were probably crocodiles everywhere else, right?
Yeah, just swimming in the street. I sat with someone that looked like they felt how I was feeling, a bit kind of overwhelmed, going, because it's a big emotion when you come out in the middle that you've got to kind of almost purge out of your system, have a bit of fuel in your body, and then get that energy to go back in and do the last bit. And we just had a really light conversation about life, like where you're from, what are you doing here, what, like, there was home life. Like he was like, oh yeah, my girlfriend's, making dinner for me tonight. Like, is a good on you. You've done it. You've got it this time. And I was like, oh, that's really nice. I'm leaving here. I'm getting on a plane. I'm going home to see mum and dad. So I was like able to get back to Perth for a couple of days, but it was like right at the end of that GAMSAT window. So I was like, all right. So that was nice. And it kind of shifted all of that frustration and whatnot. Not that I'm suggesting that everyone should go and chat to everyone in the middle, because some people don't need that. And I don't normally, but in that moment it was the right thing. Went in, faced that third section, and there was just a different feeling this time with the third section, which was my biggest challenge. So always passed the first and second section. It was just that last science-based bit that it was like getting the chemistry and whatnot. I don't think it was like the luck of the questions or anything, because they felt just as hard, but I just had a bit more reasoning behind the way that I approached the questions. And I had a better headspace about, okay, well, I know that those two answers are wrong. Now it's down to two. So now it's a 50-50 shot of whether I get this right. And then again, focusing on what was a question that was more in my wheelhouse and working backwards from that.
Awesome. So it sounds like that was your one. You're like, okay, I've got to apply now. You go through applications. What was the interview process like for you? Did you love it, hate it?
I always thought like I interview well because I like to talk and I don't mind talking about myself, and I'm good at engaging other people. And in my mind, I was like, oh, as long as I get an interview, I'll get in. But my GAMSAT result was quite low. Like I think it was a 53 or a 54 overall. So I was like, I'm going to be lucky to get an interview. But Tom, as you always said, like just throw your hat in the ring. You never know what's going to happen and where everyone else is deciding to go, and it might be that time that you just slide on in there. And I played the game, is what people often ask me. I play the game. So I sat there with that big, I printed it out on A3, the like breakdown of all the different universities and what their requirements are, what the trend is of their scores, who gives extra bonuses for being a rural student and already working in the industry or having done this or that. So I sat down and I thought about geographically where I wanted to be, which universities I aligned with. There were some that I was like, I just don't align with that university or that particular area. And I was like, I'm doing a disservice to everyone if I became a doctor there, because I wouldn't enjoy it. I wouldn't engage, all of those sorts of things. So I chose Deakin as my first preference, and then got a interview with Deakin. So I was like, cool. And then I went, okay, I know that I said that I'm good at interviewing and I think I'm good at interviewing, but maybe I'm not.
Yeah, so it feels like, you followed the process and you threw your hat in the ring, you printed the thing out, you analyze, follow the process as to how to best order your preferences. You got an interview and you're like, holy moly, what do I do?
So that was a good, fun process. Being up in, at this point, I'm in Gove, so we're remote, top end, Northern Territory area. I'm like, all right, I don't have time to go and get a new interview outfit or like find the perfect spot to have it. I just had to hope that my internet reception was good enough on the day. And I have a particular shirt that I wore for my grad connect with nursing for that interview that I carry around with me, obviously, when I travel. Don't know why. It was obviously for this interview. So pulled that out, put that on. I felt really good. I made sure that I'd had like a breakfast that morning that made me feel good. I wanted to feel confident in myself, but I had fully lent into my why, which is something that Marie, we had been speaking about at that time. And behind my station where they're like, you're not allowed to have stuff on out and you can't read notes and blah, blah, blah. Behind my laptop up on my wall was this display of all of my whys and reframing like, I am worthy of becoming a doctor, and all of this like plastered. It was like 2/3 of my wall basically of just little sticky notes and stuff that I'd written and rephrased everything. So it's like a couple near the bathroom entry, a couple on the way out of my bedroom door, a couple in the kitchen and on the door on the way out. So I moved them all to behind the computer screen. And I had this scenario where it was all Zoom based and you got dropped into a session and then you just got moved along. There was no timer. You just kind of had to wing it sort of thing.
Right.
And I was really grateful that my first station was I had to interact with a patient. So they actually had the person that was assessing plus someone that I had to be talking to, which I know other people kind of just asked about that particular scenario and to talk about how they do it. But I actually got to talk to that person. Got an actor and got to respond to that.
Yeah.
And in that moment defaulted to a lot of the nursing skills and qualities that I have of kind of reassuring someone that was freaking out, couldn't get on a plane, and we had to get on this plane to go somewhere, present something. So I was like, all of this, and then I remember distinctly the last thing I said was, should we go inside and grab a cup of tea? Because a cup of tea fixes everything. And then it's like, screen goes black. What have you done? So then that's that moment of going, oh, I think I'd have shot myself in the foot. Which again,
maybe that was the perfect way to end it. Who knows?
Maybe it was. Clearly it was because I got into medicine. But I was able to go, all right, next question, and just really kind of go, the person before me doesn't know how my last questionnaire went, like the last session went. So I was like, all right, well, this is kind of fast-paced, and I don't have any issues with talking. So that was not my problem really, but I did go in with a few really key things about myself, key things about medicine, key things about my why, and aligning myself with that particular university prior to the interview to make sure that what did come out of my mouth was genuine and true to who I am. And I felt prepared enough to talk, so I wasn't really sweaty and nervous, and I'd set my space up to be inviting and not distracting and all of those fun tips that I'd never thought of before doing the boot camp, to go, oh, that actually would make a difference.
The 1%ers, that's what I call it. It's it's not the make or break. You don't get in because of that, but also you just want to make it as seamless as possible for yourself. So setting up your environment. And I think it's actually really interesting because this third time that you've sat it, this third time, this interview that you're having, you're in a different, even emotional environment or friend environment, because you had before your best friend GP and the doctors you're working with at the hospital, but just being in you are the sum of the 5 people you hang around the most. So hang around people that are where you want to be, and you're going to get there in some way, shape or form eventually, and people that are kind of pushing and guiding you in that direction. So it feels it worked. Let's face it, it worked.
Yeah. It was hard work. And it was definitely the life balance was a challenge.
How'd you do it? How did you? Because this is something that people have. Do you just make it work? Did you have a strategy? Did you throw all the spaghetti at the wall and see what stuck? What happened?
I feel that's how I started. Is just throwing it at the wall and see if it stuck, and it didn't, so it wasn't cooked. I did a few things. I was really open with my manager at the time and the lady that wrote our rostering. And I was like, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm really determined and focused to get this done. I understand that we've got audits going on at work and all of the other things and whatnot. But I asked for a bit of consideration in the rostering because I've always been really flexible. I was, still am, single, don't have kids. So my requirements for outside life were really flexible. Plus I'm somewhere where it's not I've got a whole bunch of friends that are outside the hospital. So it was not huge, big party weekends, but there would always be something going on that you'd want to go to. So I'd made that decision within myself that I would sacrifice a few social events, but not completely cut them off. and I asked for my rostering to be a little bit more consistent and cluster shifts together. So I know normally we'd only do 3 shifts together. Could I stretch it to the 4, because they were 12-hour shifts at that point? And that would allow me more time, like in the afternoon, or to fit in my little pockets. And I broke it into bite-sized pieces because it was so overwhelming and there was so much to get through that I went, okay, this is like, you can't just kind of pick up the whole steak and bite into it. You've got to chop it up into bits that you can tackle.
I love the food analogies. This is from your chefing background.
Yeah. So I timetabled every like end of roster. I'd sit down and I'd block that in because that was like a non-negotiable. I had to go to work, I had to support myself, fulfill that role. And then I was like, okay, I have an hour window here. Let's do half an hour, and I'm going to base it on section 3. Like, this is a day where it's a challenge myself kind of day. So section 3, chemistry, these questions. So I'd start with some questions, figure out where there's what I kind of need to top my knowledge base up on, and then do that, go back and do a couple more questions, and then that would be that chunk done.
Yep.
And then kind of mixed it up as well, so it wasn't all just one topic at one time, trying to keep it entertaining for myself because I get distracted. And then I had to give myself time off. So it was like a period of time where I really had to schedule my life, and everything was kind of down to a schedule, which doesn't sound all that exciting.
No, you got to do it. And it probably is now as a medical student too, right? Down to the 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what happens every 15 minutes of your day.
Yeah. So I could then enjoy time off to do stuff for me that meant that I was probably a little less burnt out going into GAMSAT compared to every other time where it just was like hell for leather, particularly at the end, say a prayer, walk in, go and do it. Whereas this time I was a bit more fulfilled and felt like I'd taken it chunk at a time, got to the end and went, all right, well, I've covered everything. So that's...
Well, I'm going to dob you in with something because I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but we would follow up with you and check in with you, and it was radio silence on your end.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we would just keep checking in, and eventually we're like, all right, that's enough. And you're like, no, let's keep going with that. I'm listening, I just not replying.
Yeah. It was one of those things where it's like overwhelming to check in because you're like, oh, I fully I make it sound like it was so easy. It wasn't. I would make a plan and I would get halfway through it and realize that I'm behind. And you're like, I don't want to admit that I'm not hitting the goals that I've set for myself. And that was hard to kind of go, I've got all of this and it's a lot to do, but I'm not hitting it. And then, of course, your self-worth comes back into it. And so I'd even feel guilty about working on my self-worth because I was like, well, that's taking away from the time that I could work on the GAMSAT stuff. Yeah. And it's something that I've probably realised like through med school, like I'm really not good at asking for help. So coming to you guys in the first place was a huge step. And then I probably could have made it a lot easier on myself if I had checked in.
No, I think it's just everyone has a different journey. Yes, there are some similarities, but everyone's a bit different. And I tease, but it's okay. Like we still get students who don't respond, but they're still paying attention, and they're using that as a prompt to keep going, to stay on the path, because people kind of respond to it differently. But
no one's journey is better than anyone else's. It's just your journey. And like the point of sharing your journey is because there will be people that resonate with exactly what you're saying. They're like, that's me. Yeah. I don't actually want to talk to you, but I do want you to reach out, like, and make sure I'm doing it. And then if I'm doing it, great. And if I'm not doing it, well, that's kind of going to be the kick in the ass, even if I don't reply. Like, not the way I would do it, but doesn't.
We don't hassle, like, it's we're like, okay, what happened? How can we help you through this stuff? How can we work you through? And there are times when we do kick butt, but that's when it's appropriate, right?
Exactly. And it's that accountability. And it was like, Oh, yeah. And sometimes I didn't even realize that I wasn't where I wanted to be, or like that I'd kind of let things drop off because things at work were really busy, or I just was on a run of night shifts, and then it would like work out that if they were all busy night shifts and I needed sleep, and I was like, well, I kind of need to prioritize that because I still need to function.
Yeah.
And it was not easy. Like, it's not an easy task to take on.
No.
And that's without having the requirements of like kids or a partner or anyone else to go to.
I think working full time and shifts is a big deal. Like, people at uni don't realize that what a blessing it is to have uni and GAMSAT versus full time work and the exhaustion of it that comes with that, and
rural work. Like, you're not in a big hospital where you just like, oh, it's time to check out, drop my stuff and get out of here. Like, you haven't got enough people. If there's someone, like, you're staying back. You're people that I know, all of my nurses say, the ones that work rurally, are like, they're always asking me for more shifts, always, because they're just so understaffed. So, like, we get it. We know it's a big thing. So let's then move on though to med school. Tell us a little bit when you started, what it was like. What's that journey been like?
That was amazing. And I still remember like getting my offer. That was the biggest mind-blowing moment ever.
Oh, what happened? Tell me.
Tell us all about it.
So I was visiting friends in Cairns, and I'm with a lady that I call like my second mum, who actually like is good friends with my mum now. The two of them together just make me laugh. And I was with her and another friend of ours, and this other friend had just had her offer for a unit accepted, and she was flying back to work in Gove. So we went out for breakfast, and we're enjoying our time, and rudely of me, I just picked up my phone and checked my emails. Like, I wouldn't normally do it. It just kind of was this overcoming feeling. I was like, oh, I'm just going to do this. And I looked at it and just jaw drop. I'm reading the congratulations. Notre Dame, Fremantle wants you to come and like join us to do med school. And then my friend, like my good friend that's like my second mum, looks at me and she goes, you got in.
I'm getting goosebumps. You're telling me this.
I know. I'm just like, I'm so emotional.
And she just starts screaming. And I'm still dumbfounded. And then our other friend's like, wait, you got in? And I was like, I was like, can you read this? Like, make sure that I'm reading it right. And it was like 2 days after my birthday as well. So it was like this beautiful little thing. We screamed. The people at the cafe were like, are you okay? Oh, it's happy. And then my friend's like, she just got into med school. And then we called my mum and had this big, beautiful moment. And I was just like a bit shocked. And it was back here in WA, same university where I did my nursing. There's just this beautiful alignment. I was like, yes, I get to be back around my mum and my dad and my sisters and all of that. Come back and walk in that first day, and I'm just waiting for the tap on the shoulder the whole time. Like the whole first 12 months, like I'm waiting for someone to go, we're really sorry. We sent it to the wrong Ashleigh. You're not supposed to be here.
You know, it's funny because you're not the first person who's actually, I can't remember who it was, but the similar kind of a thing. They were just waiting that actually we made a mistake.
Yeah. I like check my emails being like,
will these three people please stand up and leave now?
Not only, it wasn't who, it's like no one has said that they didn't have that experience. Everybody has said that that's how they felt. So I just wonder if like the whole of the med school like first year, it's just like everybody has this collective experience of like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Did you want me? Did you actually look at my interview? I don't know.
Well, the funny thing was you interviewed with Deakin and Notre Dame gave you one. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, someone stands up and goes, Ashleigh, would you like to go and have a cup of tea?
Yeah.
Everything around here. That was a funny way to end an interview.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the other thing. Like everyone been like, oh, there's a little bit of talk about the interview process for Notre Dame. And I was like, I didn't interview for Notre Dame. They're like, what? what do you mean you didn't interview for Notre Dame? I was like, well, they were my second preference. I interviewed at Deakin. And they're like, oh. I was like, that was my way in. I was like, need to get all the extra points good. Then first year of med, that whole year, like I was waiting for that tap, like for someone to come and tap me on the shoulder. And there was some big personalities to balance out in the problem-based learning classes. And I felt like I didn't know anything and that I was struggling to take things on board. And then I would think that I had it, and then I'd go and I'd explain it on the board, because we all get up and explain concepts on the board, and then they'd go, oh yeah, and repeat it back to me in like a foreign language, which I'm like, I already work in this industry and I have no idea what you just said to me.
Was this based on the sciences and that kind of stuff, or was it the clinical skills?
Because it's all going back to like what's normal, trying to figure out your understanding of everything. And I put in like a lot of work, a lot of hours, and got to the end. Clinically, aced it, fine, happy with it. It was just the written exams that I fell short in that first year. And they went, best thing to do is to repeat the year. We're not going to push you through.
Wow.
And I was back on contract in Go. So I'm back with all of these beautiful people who are like, oh, how was your first year of med? And I was like, oh, it was really great. I'm just waiting for results. And then I get the call and just like stopped breathing for a good minute.
Wow.
That was, I guess, the tap on the shoulder that I'd been waiting for all year. And I think that was a huge thing, because my approach to the learning was what's clinically relevant. That's all year round. I'm like, what's clinically relevant? That's what I based how deep to go with everything on. Not what are they asking me? What are they testing?
Right.
It's two different things. And the comments I kept getting was, you're going to make a great doctor. You've got the clinical reasoning. We can see it. It's all there, but you need to understand the basics and get the right level of that science behind you to move on to the next year. So I had a really big decision to make. Do I repeat first year? Do I pull out and just go back to working? Because it's another year financially that I'm, not working full time.
So that was an option for you. An option was leaving.
Yeah. And going back, like, I enjoy nursing. I love nursing. I could go back and do that. I could go and become a clinical nurse, go later down the track, become a nurse practitioner. And I went, I can't do that. Like I couldn't do that to myself. I couldn't walk away and go, nope. I was like, I just had a year of figuring out how to not do it. That's how I kind of look at it now. I go, I figured out what not to do, which just made my last year, that next attempt, closer to success, because I knew one way how to not do it. So it's like, that path doesn't work. Let's try something new.
Yes. So you're reframing as you go to go, okay, all of this shit stuff's just happened. How do I pull myself together so that the next time is better? I'm sure you had a period of wallowing, as we all would, right? Where we just go, oh, well, it's crashing down.
Yeah.
What do I do? Looked at all of the options and went, no, I'm choosing to see the positive in this. That now I know what not to do. Let's focus on what to do. Love it.
Yeah. And really changed up, because I feel like by the time I got to the end of that first year, I was figuring out the learning style for learning med that worked for me, because everybody's different and I was trying different things from other people and nothing was really sticking and nothing was really engaging enough for me to retain the information. And I realized there's some things that you just have to do, like getting an Anki deck and doing the repetitive recognition, active recall. You just have to do it because there's so much content.
Yeah. It's very different to GAMSAT preparation, right? Did you
Very
find
different.
that? It's very different, where it's in GAMSAT, it's like, it's not about memorizing, it's about understanding and then the reasoning skills. But in medicine, there's just a lot of memorizing. It's just mostly memorizing.
Yeah. And I was trying to like reason my way through everything, which gets you so far.
Yeah, which is part of it down the track as well. But early on, memorize.
You just got to remember. So it was like I had all these really good skills that I have that are into play this year.
Yeah.
And it's really great. But at that time, trying to implement those with that, and I was like, it's not working. And then you just feel really down on yourself. So again, it was just a roller coaster of self-worth and am I worthy of being here? What have I done? I'd ask myself that regularly and still do. What have I done? I've got like, I could be, potentially a third of the way to a home loan deposit if I hadn't have gone and done med or all these other things that I want to do in life. And I go, yeah, but I'm still enjoying the process as much as it's kicked me while I'm down. It's definitely where I need to be and what I should be doing. And
so how was first? So you did the first year again. How was it different the second time?
It was. I knew the depth I had to go to, and where my weaknesses were. And again, I had kind of shied away from doing the things that challenged me and that were hard in that first year. Like I'd fallen back into some old habits.
Interesting.
So I, again, decided I need someone for accountability. So I got a friend of mine who was then in second year to effectively become my tutor and keep me accountable. And we rewrote questions together, and it was a huge commitment on her part to help me out. But she's like, it's actually really good for me because I'm recalling all of this and it's actually helping with second year content. So she would help me write questions and then would write an answer key, and then I would go away from those questions, do a different block, come back, answer those questions as if like they were exam questions. Because a lot of it too is about, by the end of the year, I had the knowledge, but I couldn't articulate it in a way in that exam pressure that corresponded to show that I knew enough of it. Yeah. So it was like, all right, how do I incorporate the correct language and in a way and depth and conciseness that shows and demonstrates how much of the content I actually know.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is if we go back to like the triangle of the skill set, the mindset, the work ethic, it's exactly the same triangle as the GAMSAT, but the skill set's different. Yeah. So you're not focused on, chemistry, biology, physics or essay writing, or the skills change, but you still got to work on your mindset the whole time and pulling yourself out of the gutter when you go into that I'm not good enough mode. And then the work ethic is the same. You still just juggle the same stuff. It's not like, you all of a sudden have no bills to pay and, everything's hunky-dory. You still got to, dedicate the hours and do the right thing within the hours. That's what I'm hearing there. The right thing with the studies. Oh, so amazing.
Were you working while studying medicine? How have you managed that?
I've tried to. I've just been faced with challenge after challenge. So I signed up with an agency, and every time I go to log into the agency website to pick up a shift because I'm available to do one and like put it in, there was always an issue. It was like, oh, this online learning course is a new one that we've put in and you've got to do that before you can pick up a shift. All right, do that. And then you've got to wait 24 to 48 hours for that to upload before you can get access back. And then it would come to like the long break, go to log in, and for whatever reason, my account seems to always just deactivate. And like I just keep struggling. So that in and of itself created a lot of stress for me because I'm like, oh yeah, I'll go and work in the 2-week mid-semester break. And then I get there and then the system's not working for me. And they're like, well, no one else has an issue. It's just you. No. I was like, okay, cool. Well, can we sort that out? And then it takes 2 weeks to sort out. And then I'm like, okay, well, now I'm back to uni. And being an agency nurse, I've never experienced that from being on that side. I've always had agency nurses come to me and I'm so grateful for them, and they go, oh, that was a good shift. I usually get treated really poorly. And I'd heard it, I'd seen it in bigger hospitals, and then I went out and did it and I was like, oh, I don't want to do that when I'm particularly last year like repeating the year and I've got enough stress on my plate and things to overcome. That unfortunate sort of toxic environment for agency nurses, I was like, had a couple of bad experiences and I went, all right, I think I'd actually prefer to just really budget what I get financial support for and step away and I'll go on a contract at the end of the year and top the coffers back up, basically. So it's been difficult. But then this year I've got a slightly different approach. It's like I'll keep my registration up, enough hours for that, and then looking into doing something a little bit more low key to help financially help out with all of the cost of living. Yeah. But it's finding something that's not consuming my brain space.
Yeah.
I mean, you do have some good skill sets in the kitchen, just saying. Like,
true.
So then let's look back and think, like, I want you to think about who might be listening to this. There's a ton of other nurses, healthcare practitioners, you know, physios, ambos, chiropractors, like a whole ton of people kind of where you were before who are dreaming of being doctors. They may be feeling unsure. They may be feeling overwhelmed. What would be like that one piece of advice that you would share with them?
Oh, it's a really good question. I think do it. If it's what you want, do it. But the thing that's coming to my head right now is it's not even something that I thought about, but something that my dad says is like, choose your hard. So yeah, you're going to have to make a few sacrifices and it's going to be challenging. But if it's what you want, then that challenge is worth it. And you could live with the heart of knowing that you never did it, or you can live with the heart of going through it. And failure is a part of the process. And we all feel like we're not worthy of being a doctor or pursuing whatever it is that you want to do in life. But you are worth it, and just look after yourself. Give yourself time off.
Oh, I love it. I love how you're saying failure is part of the process, because I speak to so many students that feel like they have to be perfect at all time and never get questions wrong. And it's great to see resilience in action, because if we don't see resilience in real life, how do we then learn resilience, right? So the fact that there have been challenges for you and you've bounced back. And to me, I don't care how many times anyone falls over, because we all have failures in life. I'm certainly not a perfect human being by any stretch of the imagination. But what I do like to measure is your bounce back rate. Like, when something goes wrong, do we wallow for a year, a month, a week, a day, an hour, a minute? Like, where are we in the hole, and how quickly can we bounce back out? So I absolutely love that.
Just to add to that, what lessons do we get out of that as well?
Yeah.
Because so that we don't repeat those mistakes and we're better for it moving forward. And I think that's kind of what you've been doing a lot all along, Ash, is just kind of reflecting, all right, what can I do better? How can I improve? And like you said, with your second time through first year, you had a study buddy, you implemented these different techniques, which will make you better moving forward.
Definitely. So, it's just, what can I change? What have I learned? And usually it's, what have I learned what not to do? I can change that to make it something that works. And just there was definitely a grieving process in all of those stages, like failing GAMSAT the first time and then coming up with I told myself, oh, it's just because it was a short period of time and it was work and it was this, and making excuses. But then you've got to reflect and take ownership for things as well and go, I'm part of the problem, and this is my challenge and this is what I need to overcome. And I think, I wish more people were open about it. And it was something like repeating first year for the second time, that I could have very easily sat back and gone, oh, hi, I'm Ashleigh, this is my first time here. And besides the tutors, if that's the way I wanted to play it, they would go along with it. But I very openly from the start went, hi, I'm Ashleigh, I'm repeating, I failed the written exam, but I'm here to do it again. And if you want to know what not to do, more than happy to share it.
I love that. I love that. And so many people are going to be inspired by this. You're like showing so many people that is amazing. I love that you like turned around. I think Taylor Swift made a song about that. She's like, I'm the problem. It's me.
Yeah, and on that point, I think it's really important because it's very easy to blame other things, to kind of relieve that pain of accepting that it's you. And in the moment, it might feel a bit better, but then you have no control to actually make any changes moving forward because you've just completely released that control to all these outside factors, which may or may not be true. Usually it's not, but it's how we respond to it. But if we can kind of take ownership of it, like, okay, what am I going to do differently? What can I improve? Then you can actually move forward and be better for it and get a different result next time. Otherwise, it's just a leaf blowing in the wind and go where you might,
Oh,
definitely.
So cool. Well, I think on that we should wrap up. Was there any final words of wisdom that you wanted to leave the listeners with today?
Do it. I believe in you. And be open and prepared to leave the things that you know at the door and just be open to what's in front of you and take on new experiences and new challenges. And it might not happen the first time. For me, it was the third time. And then the second time. But just chasing your dreams because you only get one life.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I cried, I think, 3 times in this episode. Even just then when you said, I believe in you, I remember saying that to you. So many times. I'm like, Ash, you can do this. This is not going to be the thing that breaks you. So whoever needs to hear that, I'm choking up because I know that there is someone right now listening to that and you have just changed their life. So thank you. I'm just going to, again, take much to I just know where you've come from and I have seen the journey and I am so grateful for your positivity, for your persistence, for your resilience, and to normalize and show other people that it's 100% possible. I absolutely love it. So thank you so much for being part of the Nurses Doing GAMSAT podcast. Thanks, Tom, for being here as well. We love you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ash, for coming. And I'm really looking forward to when you're a doctor because all of these hard times are going to make you better then as well. So it's going to allow you to share and share what you've learned and inspire others and really kick ass. So that's going to be really cool.
Well, I just want to say thank you to you both and for your support and encouragement through that first process because if I didn't have you guys on my team, then I think I probably would have given up after that third attempt. That would have been the last time and I would have not pursued it. And it just goes to show that asking for help, having the courage to do that and having those people that are going to cheer you on and call you out and accountability and be there, it was really life-changing, really. So I really appreciate your support and checking in and asking me to come and share my story means a lot to me because, I just wish that more people would speak about it. Yeah. Not my personal story, but the challenge. They can talk about me if they want.
Amazing.
I love it.
Thank you, Ash.
No problem.
And for everybody listening, that's a wrap on this week's episode of Nurses Doing GAMSAT. Excited to be here. Would love to hear the lessons that you're learning. Please join our Facebook group called Nurses Doing GAMSAT and share the lessons that you're going to be implementing from this episode. We want to say hi to Ash in there. Let's create a community where we're all inspiring each other. So go out and smash the day, smash the GAMSAT, and we'll be back next week.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, I have a cool gift for you, just for listening to the Nurses Doing GAMSAT podcast. We do some of our best work in our Facebook group called, you guessed it, Nurses Doing GAMSAT. It's free to join, and every day we're sharing actionable guides, tips and tricks, and really just how to smash the exam and get into medicine. You can join today by searching Nurses Doing GAMSAT on Facebook. Thanks for listening to another episode, and I'll see you next time.